Hello everyone. Day 3 of the Grumpy Little Girls is called The Grumpy Little Girls and the Bouncy Ferret. Enjoy! There was one thing Lulu wanted more than anything else in all the world. She already had 1 rat, 1 rabbit, 2 guinea pigs, 3 cats, 4 giant Amazonian snails, and 12 fish. Oh yes, and a woodlouse named Warren. Now she was desperate for a ferret. But she knew what her mom and dad would say. Her mom would say, "You've got enough animals already." And her dad would say, "You don't look after them properly. How long is it since you cleaned out that poor rabbit's hutch?" So on Saturday morning, Lulu cleaned out Rex's hutch. Then, at lunchtime, she said to her mom and dad very quickly, "Can I have a ferret? It's ages since I had any new animals." "You don't look after the ones you've got," said her dad. "How long is it since you cleaned out Rex's—" "This morning," Lulu cut him off. "I cleaned out Rex's hutch this morning." Her mom and dad looked at each other. "Aren't ferrets rather fierce and bitey?" asked her mom. "No," said Lulu. "I saw one on TV, and it slept in the man's bed under his pillow. So can I? Please, please, please?" "No," said her mom and dad together. And then her mom said, more kindly, "Maybe for your birthday, Lulu, but not now. A ferret would be much too expensive." But it was years and years until Lulu's birthday, and she wanted a ferret now. "It's not fair," she said, very grumpily indeed. She was still quite grumpy after lunch when her dad offered to take her to the park, where there was an excellent new climbing frame. But she cheered up when they arrived and found Maisie and Ruby already playing on it. "It's a spaceship," explained Maisie, "and those are evil aliens who aren't allowed to come on board," she went on, pointing to some little boys. When they got tired of that game, they sat on the grass in the sunshine, and Lulu told Maisie and Ruby about how much she wanted a ferret and how her mom and dad said it was too expensive. "You could save up," said Ruby. "But I only get 50p a week," groaned Lulu. "It would take ages." "I know what we could do," said Maisie, who didn't like to see her best friend looking miserable. "We could steal lots of money from a bank. We'd need a big sack to put all the money in, and masks to cover up our faces." Lulu laughed. "I think that's a silly idea," said Ruby. "How would we get to the bank anyway? We'd have to ask one of our mums to take us. And then they'd want to know why, and we'd get into trouble." Maisie looked grumpy. "I bet you can't think of a better idea," she said. "I can," said Ruby. "We could open a shop and sell things that we make." Lulu and Maisie stared at her with their mouths open. It wasn't a good idea. It was a brilliant one. "Come on," said Lulu excitedly. "Let's go back to my house so we can start our shop straight away." But when they got back to Lulu's house, the shop didn't seem quite such a brilliant idea after all. To start with, they couldn't agree what to call it. Ruby said she'd thought of it, so it should be called Ruby's Superstore. But Lulu and Maisie didn't like that name. Then they argued about what the shop should sell. So in the end, they had to open 3 shops. Lulu lived in a quiet road, so they didn't have many customers. In fact, they didn't have any except Lulu's mum, who bought something from each shop. After a while, they got bored. "We're never going to get enough money for a ferret like this," wailed Lulu. Just then, Lulu's mum called out, "Lulu, Fizz is on the phone." Fizz sounded very excited and rather out of breath. "You'll never guess what I'm doing," she panted. "What?" said Lulu. "Not telling," gasped Fizz. "You'll have to come and see." So Lulu's dad gave the girls a lift to Fizz's house, and there in the garden, they saw it. "It's fantastic," said Ruby. "It's totally wicked," said Fizz, whose big brothers were always saying that kind of thing. "I could go on bouncing all day, but you can have a go." Ruby and Maisie each had a turn on the trampoline. Lulu watched them, feeling rather miserable about her ferret. "Go on, Lulu," said Maisie, climbing off. "It's brilliant." So Lulu climbed onto the trampoline and started to bounce. Quite little bounces to begin with, then higher and higher ones. And as she bounced, she started to feel better. As if everything was going to be all right. At bedtime, Lulu said to her mom, Mom, remember when you went on that long walk and everybody gave you lots of money? Yes, said her mom, my sponsored walk. Does it have to be a walk? Asked Lulu. Could it be a sponsored something else? I suppose it could, said Mum, looking puzzled, as long as the money went to a good cause. Oh, yes, it will, said Lulu. What are you planning? Nothing, Mum, said Lulu, closing her eyes. But 2 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday, Lulu, Maisie, Ruby, and Fizz held their grand sponsored bounce. Each of them was going to bounce in turn until they'd bounced all morning. Half the money, the girls had agreed with their parents, was going to the RSPCA to help look after sick and lost animals. The other half? Well, Lulu's mom and dad had a pretty good idea how Lulu was planning to spend it. The end.